Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this live stream on everything UX design. I'm lucky enough today to have a colleague of mine, Jarmo Valmari, online. He'll probably have a go at me for butchering his surname, but I do that all the time for seeing as I work in a Finnish company and I'm English. But wanted to do today is actually take the conversation of engagement one stage further, perhaps beyond what people are used to thinking about. I know from the interactions I've had with the audience, both on stream and post stream, in other media forms, that um, we're engaging with lots of different people within learning, but very rarely do I come across the UX design team or anybody with that kind of focus on that part of the engagement process with our learners. So I thought it'd be really useful to get someone onto stream who can talk about what they do, and the benefits of focusing on how you design your platforms, the tools that you use, and things like that. Because I think it's something that would provide insight people don't necessarily think about. Before we kick that off, though, just a couple of housekeeping things. We obviously stream twice a week. So next stream's on Thursday. I'll probably say a little bit more about that at the end. We do have an upcoming webinar. Again, I'll touch on that later on. But for this stream, please use the chat. Use that functionality. It's great if you can comment. You can ask questions. Jarmo's here. I'm here to elaborate on some topics as well. So please feel free to use that. And obviously, the more people we can get on to these kind of things. Yeah, everybody can hear us both. I can't hear me. So if everyone, what I'll do is everyone, let's kick off because I'm going to pull it up on my phone and listen through the stream. So I might have a little bit of delay. For some reason,
Wow.
I can't hear Jarmo now. So that doesn't matter. What is important that everybody can hear you. So what I'll do is let's kick off with the first question, Jarmo, and that's kind of who are you and what do you do? Because I think it would help everybody to understand what a UX designer is and does. If you could elaborate on that, and then I will by that point I will be up and running with some form of audio.
All right. So I'm Jarmo. I'm head of design at Valamis, basically making sure that we are doing the best we can to create an amazing product and then helping our customers the best way we can. So UX design is maybe a subset of design under the umbrella of everything that's included by design. So to start from maybe some common way of defining UX design, people have been saying that it's where you're at the intersection of technology, business, and users, and basically we are creating products or solutions or services that are helping people to do something, and there's some sort of interaction happening, usually with technology. And what's maybe the key principle for UX designers is that we believe that the best outcomes will happen when you are trying to make things great for the person. So you're having strong empathy for the people who are going to be using your service or product. And the thinking starts from there. So how do you create motivation? How do you create opportunity, and how do you encourage people to do something that they would be wanting to do anyway? So a lot of times it's about just navigating the constraints of technology and what's really feasible, and understanding the everyday life of people and what makes something smooth as an interaction. So the design starts from that point on. So maybe the basic areas of UX design could be simplified into user research, which is about going to the field and understanding from people at what are the true problems and what do you need to do. So only then you can really kind of have facts on how should we design. So it's not that we should be designing by our miraculous insight about all the things in the world. We are not really that special, to break it to you. Sorry about that, but we do have to. No worries. So we go to the field. We interview people, we ask why, we try to observe behaviors, we try to figure out uh, what's important, what should we do, and sometimes there's a difference between what the company wants to do and what the people want to do, and this is area where usually some sort of gaps happen, and this is an important area for UX designers to navigate and bridge these gaps, so that the outcome of whatever solution or service would be built or designed is going to be something that will lead to these desirable effects. So you're looking at somebody who's interviewing people, designing prototypes and of or services for a product, and then you're trying to test them and validate that is it going to really work. And when you are sure that this is going to work, you build it and you give it to the people. So it's really just common sense and a qualitative approach to making something for people. So we have a team of different designers, and we're trying to just make sure that we are fitting in the gaps and working with the customers and letting the customer's voice be heard in the process. Sorry, Tom, people are reporting they cannot hear you.
Yeah, that's entirely because I've muted my mic whilst I was doing all these changes. So you didn't hear anything I just said. I said no more technical difficulties, and now we do have them. Uh, anyway, so what I want to touch on next is I joined Valamis about a year ago, and what I had, my first experience with UX design proper was you and your team. So maybe it helps for people to understand how that works within our company, because that really helps to solidify for me how important UX design is, particularly the methodology that we take. Yeah, maybe you can elaborate that.
Yeah, perfect. So what is kind of easy for everybody to consider is that how I would use something. And we can do this, we can think about Facebook or Instagram and picture ourselves as users. And from that point on, we can kind of know what we want. Uh, but the more complex the context is, it's getting harder and harder to kind of design for yourself. And that's when it's getting more important to do maybe more proper way of UX design and going using these methods to figure this out. So where we are with learning technology is that companies have different needs, and people in those companies operate under different circumstances and different processes, and it's just one size doesn't fit all at all. So what you can do is basically be humble and try to learn about what are those common needs. So how we do this stuff is that we do user research. Um, Basically, we interview customers or we interview users to figure out what their needs are. We observe them use our services to understand that how are they using it, because we know way too much about our own product. So of course we are biased. So we have to kind of get to the level where people are not so familiar with the product and see how they are doing. So we give them tasks to do something that we hope that they were able to figure out how to do that. Um, of course, a lot of our design work is based on standard understanding of usability and how things work in general and how people use other products. So it's not like a blind guess, but we still need to be very careful with this because the how part is so important. Like they say, the devil is in the details, and this is really the case. So to make it right, to make design right, you have to go to the field and work with the customers, work with their users, and understand their use cases. So this is the foundation. And when we have this insight and other, of course, other insights as well, like comments from learning consultants or people who are facing customers or potential customers, there's many sources of insight, and we try to put it all together when we're designing something. But we try to learn before we design anything. We try to learn what the facts are, and this would help us scope the right kind of feature. Something that when we are gonna build it, we already know that people are gonna need it and people are gonna love it. If we don't have this feeling that we are confident about what we're building, then we haven't done enough research. So build it and there come is going to be like a horrible way of dealing with something where every customer is a little bit different. So basically, when you have limited resources, and we all do have limited resources, you want to make sure that you are optimizing the use of that and building something that will be great and that will be used by people to generate some sort of value for the customers. So that's the first part. Then we are collaborating internally with the team. So designers are no gurus. It's really common sense stuff, and we need everybody. So we may have a data scientist, learning consultant, people from product management, and so on. And we're trying to figure out how it all comes together into this nice solution that will help customers with their problems. And then when we design it, we make a prototype out of it, and we try to test it with the customers. We try to see if it's going to be functional, and then we're going to build it, and then we're going to ship it. So that's one way. That's kind of roughly how we make the product, and then how we work with customers is another thing. So we have teams working with the customers, and there's always a designer involved, and that designer is also going to be learning from the customers that what are the pain points that we might currently have, what are the things that we should do next, and this will give us this kind of detailed information that will help us understand what the kind of true purpose of this product for the customer is, which is another one for another customer. So with this kind of armed with this knowledge from the customers, the work isn't really going to be that difficult then, because we are confident that we're doing the right thing. But without this part, that it will be guesswork, and when you're working on a complex field like this where you cannot kind of design for yourself, then the odds aren't that great. So relying with facts and and it's pretty straightforward. That's kind of our take on it.
So it's fair to say then that there is a huge amount of this is around business partnering or proper partnering with customers, and that you can't
Absolutely.
do this on your own. This is it is so situational and specific to the customer or even the audience that you're dealing with, and you have to get to know them, their challenges, the way they work, before you can start to even think about designing or even implementing a solution.
Exactly. So you cannot even design one solution. So the critical difference with this stuff, and often with enterprise software, is that you cannot just build it one way. You cannot just say that this is how everything will be working, because customers will be like, well, our company doesn't work that way, so you're not the right fit for us. So you have to build in the flexibility so that you are having a useful, beautiful, simple product, but you're making it a square for somebody else, and a circle for somebody else, and triangle for somebody else, while they only see their own product. So this is where the delivery team has to come in and really design the environment for the customer, so that you're able to understand the business case and do it right. So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Let's say that there's a restaurant chain.
I was about to ask for.
Yeah, like fast food or something, and McDonald's or KFC or anybody like this. So what you're looking at is huge amount of franchise restaurants all around the world, and people are looking to get new employees very quickly to the point where they can do their work. and obviously there's going to be some sort of onboarding training. And there the point is that how can you make it efficient and make it nice, because you want to, as a person who's going to take that job, you want to be able to do it right, and you don't want to kind of stress out in the front of the customers, like how do you do this, like what do I do now. And from the point of view of the restaurant manager, you are hoping that you don't have to have another person working for a long time just helping out this new person. So how do you kind of make it efficient, so you're doing some sort of um, effective learning? But there the goal isn't really to spend a lot of time. You're just trying to learn something to get started. But another case would be that you're trying to learn as much as you can by kind of changing the approach of working, that you're learning something every day. You're developing your skills, becoming better, let's say better consultant or whatever you're working on. So there you're kind of investing in your self-development, or the company is investing in your development. Um, so also there you're not maximizing the time you spend on learning, but you're trying to find a way to build this habit that you're learning every day something new that's relevant to you. So those cases are completely different, and they need completely different approach. Um, so you have to somehow make a product that works for both of these cases. So it means that the product needs to be really flexible, and you really need to understand the use cases that are driving these needs. And those use cases are coming from the business needs, and those business needs are often like really simple to understand. And then the hard part is like, how do you make it one product so that it doesn't kind of become like a huge mess? So that's maybe the harder part of the designing for many different purposes, and coming up with one beautiful flexible solution that will be exactly what you need regardless of your kind of background and business case.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this prior to obviously doing the stream, and you gave a really good example where this didn't work. It was outside of learning, I think, but I don't want to give the game away of who it was, because I don't want to essentially deliver the punchline before you've said what happened. But it was an American organization. We spoke about it yesterday. Do you know the one I was talking about?
Sorry, I lost you for
Or
a
the one that
second.
you spoke about, should I
Could you
say?
say it again, please?
Yesterday, when we were discussing what we would be talking about on stream today, you discussed an example where um, there was an example of UX design that went horribly wrong for a
Oh,
company who shifted their approach.
oh yeah. So this is it's possible to kind of get things terribly wrong if you're doing, let's say you're getting a new software for a certain purpose. Um, this example is from Jared Spool, who's one of the kind of thought leaders in the UX field, and he gave this example in his talk, where a company, it was I think a lawyer company, they changed their intranet to uh, I think it was Microsoft SharePoint, and they used to have a simple way of running basic things with their internet, so that the lawyers could be invoicing their customers and so on. And when they did this change, they introduced a new software, and basically it was just there. It kind of went terribly wrong because nobody could know how to invoice the customers anymore. So what the mistakes there was that they didn't involve the people who are using the product every day, and then they made a switch to another product, and suddenly kind of nobody got to do their work. So it ended up costing hundreds of millions for the company, and it took a long time for the company to really recover. I think it was years. So it's just an example, like when you are building something for somebody else, it's really good to understand what they're doing in the everyday life. So kind of taking the UX design approach there would be to go to these people that, hey, we are thinking of taking a new new software here so that we can kind of have more features regarding the things that we want to do with it. And we would like to know how you do your work. What do you do here? And okay, so when you come into the homepage, or okay, so you need to do an invoice, how do you go about it? And then you kind of come up like, aha, this is something that needs to work when we get the new software working. So it's not that the SharePoint product would be inherently bad or anything like that. It's just like if you cannot discover the function that you were supposed to be doing, that's same as it doesn't exist for the user. So it's a really expensive lesson to take. So I encourage everybody to kind of be aware of this, that it's also happening with anything like a new CRM or new learning platform or whatever software. So just like go in there and learn what the use cases are, and learn what you're doing now and what's working well, what's not working well, and then take all of this into account when you're making decisions about the possible next step.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, a really good point, because it's this a lot of these skills, particularly around UX design, are transferable across the business, or not just necessarily to learning platform, but also to sometimes where you have technology or learning that requires another piece of technology to run, such as developer environments and things like that. You need to be thinking about the UX design the whole time. So
Yeah.
one of the other questions I had, which is, we've got some people on stream here, and please post comments or questions to anybody that has any. But one thing I had was, what if I wanted to start looking at the UX design of my platform today? What are the typical things that you might ask, whether it be questions or data points you might look at? Something, I don't know, something practical that our audience could maybe just tune into to go, well, we could start looking at some of these points to work out if we are successful with our UX design.
Yeah. So let's consider that you're not going to change the platform. You're simply going to work with what you have and start from that point. So you're a little bit married to the solution that you have. So whether it comes with something good or something bad, that's what you have. So you can always work with a partner and try to see if something can be improved, but you're not really helpless. So what you can do is that you can first start to figure out what are the main use cases of the platform. So you probably worked on this when you were getting the system in the first place, but is it completely clear to everybody who's using the platform that what you're supposed to be doing? And then when you have like the top priorities, let's say for a learner, so if I'm a learner and I know what I need to be doing, and then let's take a look at the homepage, like what are the items that are relevant to me regarding these top priority use cases? Am I going to be finding the things that I should be finding very easily, or is it going to be very hard for me to find what I'm looking for? So is the content going to be relevant to me, or is it just something random recommendation or random promoted stuff? How do I see the content which I was already working on? Like, how do I continue learning? So it's often about continuing on where you left off, not just like picking something new. You have to do something and you were kind of interrupted, so now you're coming back and you want to continue. How difficult or easy it is to do these things. So one thing that UX designers are kind of wired to do is to identify obstacles and coming up with ways to resolve those and getting them away. So we can assume that the learner wants to learn and they want to do these things. That's why they come to the system. Can we configure the system somehow in a way that the information is what the people are going to need? Like, let's say relevant content. It's going to be right there in the homepage. Or if it's not something that's there, it's easily findable. So you can, for instance, learn a little bit about usability testing and do that internally to figure out where you're at the moment. Or you can look at the analytics about how the engagement is happening with the content, or are people finding it. So that's the kind of, to be able to improve anything, you want to know where you are at, because if you make a change, how do you know if it's a better for worse or for worse if you have no numbers on anything? So that's a kind of good starting point. Uh, so finding the use cases, what are the relevant points, and then making sure that people are able to do those relevant things. And if they're not, can you somehow configure the system? Can you somehow promote the important stuff? Is there something that you can do about it? So that you would first have people discover these things and make it easy. So you want to optimize the time spent on the platform so that most of it is spent on the actual learning and not kind of navigating around trying to figure out how things work or where things are. So you kind of at this stage you're trying to optimize what you already have.
I had a bit of delay there on the line. For some reason, it just started to, which is why you're sitting there, Jarmo, when looking at the camera and I'm not talking to you. Um, so, yeah, I mean, it's really good advice, because I think having those actual tangible things to measure is going to be really important for anybody listening to this stream, either live or following on from this on YouTube. What about I suppose for me, the UX design, I always look at it as how we're making the link. Like, we've got people engaged, we've got them to the platform, and then we've got arguably, let's assume, great content, and it's the way that you're kind of helping people navigate to that as quickly as possible. But you know, is there a? Am I right to think that there is a strong link with the content?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about the content really if you're talking about learning. So well not all, but mostly we are talking about learning content, and of course there's going to be features that support like social learning and kind of getting people hooked on learning. So that's something that the platform can kind of help or encourage with, but the content is really the king. And while you're trying to make everything useful and fast and easy, it's the content where people are going to. So if you want to kind of improve people's learning, you have to first, if you, let's say we're taking the UX approach, I would say like first look into the mirror. Like, does our content deserve to be used more? Is it inspiring? Is it going to be delightful? Is it something that people feel like they're getting what they're coming for really easily and quickly, and they're learning, and when they are done with the learning, they think like, I want to take another one, this was inspiring, or I want to recommend this to somebody else. So if you can get this positive vibe going, then it's likely that people will be also engaging more with the content. So kind of making sure that if people are not having much time, how can you deliver the insight with an efficient package? Like, can you make it a quick video? Can you kind of filter out all the uh, kind of pieces of content that are not really giving you the answers? So like, I'll take an example of a YouTube video. There's a loads of videos nowadays where the author is simply creating maybe 10 minutes of something, and then the kind of thing where you what you wanted to find there was just like maybe 30 seconds in the middle. And I was checking. I'm a drummer, and I checked this drumhead comparison, and kind of what struck me is that there was the comment, uh, somebody writing in the video that, uh, by the way, this is what you came for, and then there was a link to the timestamp for like maybe 4 minutes something seconds. So it's like all kinds of stuff, and then there was this
Yeah.
tiny bit of information which was kind of connecting with the title. So if your signal to noise ratio is low, then that's not really gonna be kind of inspiring. So, and that's also gonna take a lot of time from the people. So if they have limited time with people, and you probably want the people to be also working and doing why they were things that they were hired for, looking into the efficiency of the content and looking into the kind of how long does it take for a person to find a specific answer to their question. How can you uh, be more efficient on that one? So if you find that in your platform you're taking a lot of time on these kind of things that are not bringing the value to the learner, maybe you can kind of think that, okay, how can we kind of make the package a little bit more insightful and just cut out some of the content, just make it efficient. It's like editing a piece of writing. It's like you probably first when you write it, it's a lot of everything, then you cut it and then you cut it again, and maybe in the end you have 10% left, but it's all really good. So that same approach will help the learner if you do that for the learning content as well. And one thing that I'm kind of always inspired by when I usually don't like ads, but when I see these masterclass.com ads, there's going to be somebody talking about uh, whatever the topic is. It's cooking or filmmaking or music or whatever that is. There's always this kind of world's best name on it, and it's like this ad is like an insightful story that, oh, I want to learn, like suddenly I want to learn about poker because this is so inspiring. So how can you get a little bit of that to your learning content? Because then no matter what kind of problems you have with the platform, people are there for the content, and then they will be like, oh, I want this. Like it's like the cheap flights, like people will do anything to get the cheap flight. So even if it's like terrible to book them, people will still want to do it. So you want to get that same thing going on for the content. So if everybody's inspired for the content, and they want more of it, and they cannot stop talking about it, they're sharing with anybody. Like now I was sharing the masterclass thing, so I was obviously inspired. So if you can get that going, there's going to be engagement, and that's kind of the beef for the content design.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for sticking with us with this slight audio lag. It's about 2 or 3 seconds behind. But so if you do hear me making nods, I've been muting my mic mostly. What I was going to say off that, the masterclass thing is a perfect example. I see that all the time when I log into YouTube and start viewing things, and it is glossy, but it's very good at marketing. It's kind of inspiring to go and look at. It's engaging people even where you know that this is going to be a premium paid for subject matter, and it not always is related to professional development. A lot of the time it's personal. One thing I want to touch on as well is you've mentioned a couple of things there that really blur the lines between content and then engagement with platform, and we spoke about that at a fair amount of length on the data stream that we ran. I'm just gonna take my headphone. I'm getting an echo through it. So on that stream, what I spoke about is the fact that at all parts of the learning process, or frankly any process that you're trying to push someone through or pull someone through, you are essentially there are always data points that you can use to measure. But what's interesting is that you're looking at those data points even outside of where you would typically operate. So you're looking at, well, what's the engagement level on, say, pieces of content of this type? Or from your perspective, I suppose as well, I suppose you're also looking at it as if people are using, say, the video player that we have on platform, or the course viewer that we have on platform, how are they using that? So actually you are intrinsically linked to the content because you've designed the tools that we use even when we're consuming the content, not just navigating to it. So I mean, UX design is like everywhere. It's hard to almost get away from it.
Yeah, you really cannot. If you're using something, somebody designed it. So it might even have been that no designer, no professional designer was used, but somebody did design it, and you are at the mercy of it. So the kind of responsibility for the designers is to be humble at this kind of understanding and figuring out how can we really create value and make the best product for this purpose. So one thing I would take a look at if I had data on something, that okay, which device are they going to use if they're checking it, or how long do learners typically look at some content, or how do they do it? So if it turns out that they're mostly using mobile and they have a minute, maybe a short video is better than like a complicated slide kind of format. And then what time is it? What kind of connection they might be having. Like, are you taking these into account when you're planning on it? So sometimes when I want to kind of deep focus on something and get some kind of learning done, I might be focusing and I kind of book a time for it and I'm going to do something. But other times I'm just going to come for one answer. So how do I find that answer quickly? So I'm not actually about learn something. I just need kind of knowledge on demand. So somebody in the company would already know about this, or some content might have this answer. So how do I get that answer so that I can keep doing what I was supposed to be doing or what I was working on? So kind of designing content, it's not just like a story you tell from start to finish, but also like, okay, how does somebody learn this piece of information as quickly as they can? Let's time it. Let's give it to test. Put it to test. Give it to people and ask them to find this information, obviously without biasing what you're gonna find. So there you see that, for instance, search is crucially important. Um, YouTube, by the way, is the world's second largest searched or most used search after Google. And I think one thing that sometimes gets maybe misunderstood is this kind of Netflix of learning thing, um, where everybody's talking about how it should be like Netflix, but it would be maybe more appropriate to talk about like YouTube of learning, because YouTube is giving you a way to find information quickly. Netflix is more like, I want to kind of glue you into your sofa and keep you there forever. But that's not the goal of learning technology. You don't want your kind of people to simply be glued into the computer and keep looking and learning and not applying anything. So even though you want to care about, you want to kind of have high engagement, uh, even more important is the high impact and how's gonna the work performance be affected by the things that you were just learning. So you also need to kind of design and see how can you measure this impact and how can you get to the point where the learning technology is actually providing value for the company via giving better performance or helping people stay longer or be more efficient at what they're doing or whatever that might be. But it doesn't start or stop with engagement. So engagement is like a middle goal that helps us show that, okay, people discovered the content and they are interacting with the content. But it's UX design is really kind of everywhere, and you simply take the common way of thinking that, okay, we have goals, how do we reach those goals, and then you go and research the problem and try to understand what are the things that might prevent us from reaching the goals, like individual motivation or lack of it. One thing that I hear often from L&D professionals and instructional designers and people with kind of pedagogical training uh, is that they talk about training, and the UX approach would be like, we don't care about training, we care about learning. Like, you cannot learn for somebody else. You have to understand what will make somebody want to learn, and then it will kind of change the angle in your thinking, like, how do I make this inspiring instead of how do I put as many bullets as I can into this page. So it's kind of taking this approach. I don't mean that the training is not needed. Of course, all that is also needed, and that's why the teamwork really is important. So UX comes with this kind of learner point of view or the end user point of view, but that's not all that there is to the story. But it's a kind of way to focus on how do we make it so that somebody would actually want to learn or want to do this thing. And when you have that motivation, UX thinking kind of would suggest that good things will follow when people really want to do that. So yeah, UX is really everywhere, and you kind of uh, want to consider that and not simply kind of forget about that point of view.
Just as I'm conscious of time for everybody here, and thank you for sticking with us. I see there's a comment in the chat there from Phil asking if you could explain, Jarmo, how essentially saying what do you mean by use case and top priority use case. So I'm assuming there It's kind of how would you differentiate, or what's your triage process for working out what are the most important things when designing, because surely there must be conflicts of interest, or you have to prioritize something over something else at times, and how do you come to those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, with any software or anything, you have things that are going to be used a lot. You have things that are going to be done a lot, and then you have things that are rarely going to be visited. So with the kind of reality that there's always limited resources, regardless of what you do, you don't have endless resources or ability to kind of magic up something into the product. You have to focus, or you maybe want to focus on what's the most important thing. So when you are focusing on getting the most important things really right, that might already kind of make the product better on 90% of its kind of true needs. So people are not going to be using certain feature maybe more than once a year. Do you want to focus all your effort on that? Or maybe you want to focus on having 10,000 people finding that right piece of content, so that you are fine tuning the search experience, you're fine tuning the way that you are recommending content, so that the most people will get their job done. And there may be some parts that then you're thinking, okay, so this isn't the perfect thing, but it's more valuable for the customers if we spend our time making the other part even better. So you have to kind of figure out what are the important goals. So I would start from what do we want to achieve with this technology? What are our ultimate goals? And from there, I think what are the most important use cases uh, that would support those goals. And some of the use cases are directly involved, like the search, like searching something and finding something. You might have like a knowledge base where you have the best answers on certain topics from the collective best minds of your company. So how do people quickly find this information? That might be more important than how do you go and change certain settings, which you only need to do once or twice a year. But then if you create a lot of content, it might be important that the process of creating content and sharing it is really frictionless and really easy and fast, because if it isn't, it will kind of be disappointing for people who are trying to do uh, this sort of thing. So it will lead to less content, or just like subpar content if the tools are terrible for making that content. So you're trying to figure out what is important, and then you're focusing kind of the most magic powder that we have on those, and you're testing the most on those. You're making sure that the performance of the services or the product is kind of at the best on those use cases. And we know that if people are going to be doing that all the time, they're like, that's going to be different than doing this one thing. So kind of figuring out what's important on a very top level, and then reverse engineering back, so that no, like if we want this to happen, these things needs to happen, and then we need to find that this person needs to have motivation to do these things so that we can get to the goal. So if you just follow those paths, you will find your top priority use cases, and then everything else is going to be secondary or tertiary. So yeah, that's I think how we do it, and just testing it and figuring out. And when somebody's really kind of suffering from not being able to do their work, or it's gonna create a negative vibe, so that in the customer or in the company, they're gonna start talking bad about like how this is so disgusting to use. I hate this product. I don't want to use it. I'm gonna use email and PowerPoint or whatever. So that's not a good way to go. It will kind of make the person do something else rather than use your system. So you kind of really want to focus on making sure that the most important things are in good shape, and that you're listening to the customers and you're listening to the people. And if you find that there's something problematic with the with the current way of things, you're thinking, okay, how do we fix it? How can we maybe get it on the roadmap that we fix this feature, or how can we do it better in the future? So then is when you go and user research, you research the problem, and you learn from people like, why is the problem that it is this way, and then you try to improve and hope that people will love your product uh, by simply kind of showing that you're really customer focused or user focused, and if there's an issue, you really go on hard and try to figure out how to fix it, um, for the future versions of the product. So I think that's a little bit or maybe long and winding answer on the top right, the use case kind of thinking. Can't hear you,
Sorry,
man.
it's because I keep muting myself so I don't appear in this weird laggy state halfway through what Jarmo's saying and disrupt his flow. So thank you, Jenny, for posting that in the comments. Um, yeah, we've got 5 minutes left. What Jarmo's been great at doing is actually providing some resources for anybody that wants to kind of research this further. Some of them might be deeper dive. I don't quite know. Maybe Jarmo can just quickly talk to the 3 or 4 resources he's got. We're going to post those into the comments section of this video. I will also put those links into my LinkedIn. Jarmo's on LinkedIn. He might even do the same. So that if anybody's interested in just like taking this a little bit further, passing it on to their UX team, or just understanding more about it for their own benefit, then I think probably, I mean, I haven't looked at them personally. I'm trusting Jarmo, but he's good at what he does. So I'm assuming a great set of resources. So if you just give each of those maybe just a quick little overview, an overview of what they are, just so that people, when they link to them or go and look at those links in the chat, Jarmo, they know kind of what they're getting, and then we'll round out the stream.
Yeah. All right. So if you have a team of UX designers, they probably know all of these books and they've learned it. But I kind of want to share from the point of view that anybody can really kind of learn from the UX toolkit, and apply this at work. You don't have to be a UX designer or a designer to be able to do some of these things. So the point I'm trying to get across is that it's more about the approach and the empathy for the for the people who are gonna be why you're even doing this whole product for. So you're hopefully getting this approach. And then one book that gave me this kind of strengthened my approach on it was the classic design book, Design of Everyday Things. It's it's the book that I usually give as the first thing when somebody thinks like they are interested in UX design. So it's not about really kind of technology, but it's about the approach. So for instance, there are a bunch of examples of doors malfunctioning or something, like something so simple as a door. How can you kind of mess that up? And the conclusion is that it's not the users or it's not the person's fault if something was designed in a way that it's not intuitive. Uh, one example from my actually I had a customer at the previous job, and there was this nice little glass door. He was coming to the meeting room, and he was pulling the handle as as you would think, opening a door. Nothing happened. So he seemed a little bit embarrassed about it, and he made sure that he will open the door properly. So he took a good grip of the handle, and then pulled until the whole thing snapped and broke. So what happened was that we had to replace the door. But the thing was that it was a sliding door. So he was supposed to push it sideways, but the handle was suggesting that, oh, this is something that you grip and pull. So it's not the fault of the person. It's the fault of the designer not understanding that what looks intuitive to the person. So it's loads of examples, and also really good kind of psychological background on how to design something and how to kind of understand the point of view of the user. So that's that's an interesting book that I really recommend. Then the next one is called Persona Lifecycle. It's by John Pruitt and Tamara Adlin. Uh, what do you do with personas is like when you have done all of this user research or any kind of insights that you have, you're trying to package it in a way that it's easily usable, and this information about your users is being carried to your work. So all of this research about what the needs of the people are, what the situations, we are kind of creating personas out of that, and we have our own personas for the product, but we also do personas for all of our customers, because those use cases really need to be heard, and those people who have need those use cases, they need to be heard. So they are coming from different backgrounds, they have different needs. It may help us kind of understand that. For instance, we have a persona called Linda, and Linda is 50 plus something, and she's not really kind of confident with technology, and she's a great instructor or great trainer, but she's kind of insecure about technology, and is she using these digital things correctly, and we are using her picture. It's an imaginary person based on the data, but it's something that comes to life, like how would Linda work with this, and then we realize, we are not perhaps giving kind of enough reassurance that you've done the right thing and everything's working, everybody's coming to your event, and you're good to go. You don't have to kind of worry anymore. So having these personas when you are doing the work will help, because they will bring the voices of your people back to you, and then this will be useful for designing, and it will help us also kind of focus the use cases of what each individual customer has, because otherwise it's sometimes hard to really get to the point that how a certain feature needs to be made is so important, and that's where the personas are helpful. So the book is really simple guide on how to put together this persona, and it's a kind of helpful way to bring this all this is information from the research and other insight, uh, something that you can print it out, and you can use it when you're designing your solution or you're designing your content, and you're looking at this person that, oh, oh, Kate always is using her mobile. She's never on the computer. She hates doing that on the computer. Actually, she doesn't even have time because she's always moving around. So how do we make learning content for her? So it's very helpful. Then a couple more by Steve Crook. These are really easy ones. So Don't Make Me Think is a classic web usability book. It will help you kind of look at websites and web products in a way that is it simple, is it understandable. If I have to think about it, then it's not. That's kind of the uh, point of the title there, that don't make me think. You're just trying to make something so easy and so intuitive that it's immediately understandable. So it's a very basic and very quick read, very funny also. So if you're thinking of something lightweight about usability and kind of standard web stuff, that's a good book to take. And the final one, it's also by Steve Crook, called Rocket Surgery Made Easy. I don't know why he went for rocket surgery, not rocket science or brain surgery. I kind of always wonder what's the story behind rocket surgery, because how do you, like, I kind of picture what that looked like. But anyway, it's a usability testing book. It's the easiest, fastest, simple, really straightforward book, and it's really intended for anybody who wants to do usability testing. So you don't have to be a designer. You don't have to know anything about this field. And if you pick up this book, it will have basic guidance on how to conduct usability testing. It has already kind of ready-made scripts that you can use. So you can simply run through the whole thing by using the book. So if you want to learn how the product that you're using is working for your users, let's say you're working from L&D, or you're figuring out a new product and you want to test it with your people, you can look at this book and kind of just start conducting usability testing. So it's really that simple, and kind of it's not something that only designers or UX professionals should be doing, but everybody should be interested in and doing these things. And I'm trying to kind of, well, I'm hoping that somebody picks up some sort of inspiration from this, and maybe you can check out the books or reach out. I can share other resources also if you have more specific uh, wishes. But these 4 books, so recap: Design of Everyday Things, Personal Life Cycle, Don't Make Me Think, and Rocket Surgery Made Easy. Those are kind of simple ones to get started. And if you're really interested, there's going to be tens of more. So just reach out. But start with those.
Perfect. I mean, that's really good, and thank you for that resource. I'm sure people on stream, and I say after when they watch this back, will be find that hugely beneficial, and we will post those out on our social media as well as in the comments here. Other than that, we've gone 5 minutes over normal, so this is now the record for the longest stream, Jarmo. So this is I don't know if we win anything from the Guinness Book of Records, but we'll take it. But thank you very much for your time. It was a really interesting topic, one I enjoy. Hopefully people have got a very, well, it's a different perspective on how to approach platform or tool design and things like that, and have got some things they can take away and hopefully implement in their own environments, platforms with their own audiences. So again, just thank you for joining us. From a housekeeping perspective, as I said at the start of the stream, we've got another stream on Thursday. We have Jason Flynn, who is the Global Head of Learning for GfK. He is coming on with one of their providers to talk about a major sales program they were rolling out or planning last year. COVID-19 hits this year, and they've had to completely take everything back to the drawing boards. They're talking about pre-COVID, current situation, and even the future, about how it might go in the future, and some actually the interesting lessons they've taken away from the whole process. So that should be super interesting on Thursday at 10 GMT. Also, it's in the description, but we have a webinar. Laura Overton, who's been on a number of these streams, she is joining us on a webinar in a next week, I believe it is. I'll put, again, details in the description. But they will, that webinar is kind of a summary of what we've been discussing, possibly going into some greater depth. And we're actually, even up to now, we are still getting insight from your, like, essentially you